Okay. So first of all, we are on Yud Chet Amud Bet, but I'm going to go over some stuff on Yud Chet Amud Aleph before we go into the Gemara. By the way, we're finishing this parak in about 2 dapim, Chaf Amud Bet. I'm seriously considering leaving the second parak for now, and I know you guys are going to question another copy of a Gemara, but I'd like to do the 7th parak. I'll send you guys an email. It's in the, I believe, the 7th parak, okay, or part of the 7th parak. It's called Klal Gadol, and I'll tell you why, because the 7th parak has got the key entree to all of Shabbos. In other words, it goes through all the 39 malachos, and it's really the entry point. And from there you can branch out to any parak pretty much, which will talk about specific different malachos and different concepts. So if you want to choose the real, I know the beginning should be at the beginning, but the real entrance should be that, as opposed to Bamem Alikim, which talks about lighting and hadlaka and so forth. It's a very important parak. Maybe we'll come to it after we do the 7th parak. So that's the good news and the bad news. The bad news is you'll have to invest in another volume of the art scroll.
My good news is that
it's a new art volume.
Steinsaltz has right up to parak Shmini,
okay.
Right?
But I feel strongly about it that this will actually be very helpful if we do the 7th parak. There's and we'll probably even start in the middle of the 7th parak, because that's really where it talks about the 39 malachos of Shabbos. If you want to know Shabbos, you got to know what the 39 are and why they aren't. Okay, so it's a little bit like this, but it's really the right way to do Shabbos. Anyways, we have not met for, I believe, 4 weeks. Okay, and it's a good chunk of this is my fault, so I begin with the apology. Right? And I was away, and there was Yontif, and another Yontif, and then I went away for stuff that was professional, but I'm back. Okay. So let me kind of put this together where we're going to go. We're on Yud Chet Amud Bet, but I want to give you 2 chunks that will make the part we're going into make sense. Okay. The first concept that's important for us to remember about is something called Shvitat Kelim. Do your utensils have to rest on Shabbos? Just conceptually, I have to rest on Shabbos. My animal has to rest on Shabbos. The people that work for me have to rest on Shabbos. There's an obligation that I have to make sure my animal rests on Shabbos. It doesn't mean that the animal has to be immobilized, but if I had a pack horse or a donkey, I could not use it to schlep stuff for me. I can take it to the barn. That's what donkeys do, but I can't put a pack onto it, or I can't have it pull a wagon or something like that. I can't do that on my donkey. I have and that's found actually in this, the 10 Commandments. Yeah. So I have to ask the questions: what about things? What about and even a goy should not work for me except under specialized conditions, right? But the goy is a little bit different than an animal. It's my animal, right? Goy is an independent contractor. He does what he wants to do. So a lot of more easier to say to a goy, he can do it because he's an independent thinking person, as opposed to the animal, which is really relying upon me. So, and actually there is a special prohibition called mechamer, which is leading. Okay, leading. It's not one of the 39 malachos. It's not one of the 39 malachos, but it goes back to the 10 Commandments, which says you're going to atov and chav and chav v'shorcha v'chamorecha v'chol ha'shalach, or something like that in the 10 Commandments. So the question becomes, what about my utensils? Do my utensils have to rest as well? My utensils are inanimate, but they're working for me. So this is a machloka that the Gemara will talk about, just to kind of tell you where we're going to go. Initially, the Gemara thought that Beit Hillel was going to say that my utensils have to rest. In the end, the Gemara is going to come back and say, no, Beit Shammai says that according to Beit Hillel, my utensils don't have to rest. So in other words, if I put something on autopilot, or let's say I had, I was not doing, I had my pot was on the fire. The pot is being heated up, but I'm not cooking itself. I put it there before, maybe it would be okay, things like that. So, but that's going to be really what's going on here. What I wanted to go through with you, what could be a problem? There may be other problems about it making too much noise and disturbing people. There may be other problems about if the pot is on the fire, that I may come to stir the coals. Okay, the Gemara is going to talk about that. But that's not the same as saying that the pot itself, if I put the pot up on Friday and I left the pot there, that the pot is cooking. I didn't put the pot on the fire on Shabbos, but automatically it's going into the cooking mode by itself. So that's what's called shvisas kelim, or if you speak Sephardic, shvitat kelim. The kelim have to be shavas; they have to rest. Do they or don't they?
So today, if you had like a kumkum It boils. You put
So,
it
for
before
example, the
Shabbos,
best example
it
is
stays hot all
right.
the
That's a
time.
good example.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
right.
yeah,
We have you have a hot what do you call it, an urn, and the
Yeah.
urn is cooking all along, correct?
Exactly.
Right. And once again, it's working. It's clearly
is.
cooking. Except I'm not doing it now. For me to put on the urn, for me to put the urn on the fire, right? That's my cooking.
Right.
But here the urn is cooking on its own. So there are some exceptions, but that's the basic rule. So the issue that comes up in two places, in the Mishnah and in the Braita, and then we'll get into Yinchet. And I think it's important we do this quick review because we've been away, and you don't remember it, and I think I remember it, okay? But there's nothing better than making sure that you say it over to make sure that we know it. We're going to see the Mishnah, take a look at the Mishnah again, and we're going to take a look at about 10 lines of a Braita on Yinchet Amud Aleph. So we're going to go to the Mishnah on Yud Zayin Amud Bet, okay? We had seen this 4 weeks ago, so if it looks familiar, that's a good sign. If it doesn't look familiar, it means you may not have been here, because if you were here, you'd remember it. So the Mishnah is on Yud Zayin Amud Bet, and it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, I think 11 or 12 lines. It says Matnitan, right? Everybody's got it? It's easy to find.
Yud Zayin Amud.
Yud Zayin Amud Bet. Should be the last piece on Yud Zayin Amud Bet. Murphy, have it?
No,
No?
I don't. It's okay.
Beit Shammai Omrim, no?
Beit Shammai Omrim. Matnitan. No? You gotta find it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
There you go. Bingo.
Yeah,
Okay.
So I
Beit Shammai
got it
Omrim.
right,
Okay,
but
good.
I wasn't here. We did this, Mishnah, or no?
Yes, we did.
I guess I wasn't.
You was not here. Okay.
missed the week.
You were probably at the cottage. Beit Shammai Omrim.
Closed now, though.
Now, this is about soaking certain things that they'll absorb. So the Mishnah says, Beit Shammai Omrim,
Zayin Amud Beis.
Yud Zayin Amud Bet, 17b. About 10 lines at the bottom.
Near the bottom.
You got it, okay. Ein shorin, Beit Shammai says, Ein shorin dio v'salmonim v'kashina el kadesh yashuru mibod. You can't soak. These are different substances or vegetables, and you either need to soak them to make dyes, to have the dye come out into solution, or make them malleable or palatable. And kashinim is a type of vegetable that they gave to animals, which had to be made softer. So you start the process on Erev Shabbos, and Beit Shammai says you can't really do this unless it's really going to be enough that it's going to start to absorb or put out the dye itself, Mibod Yom, before sunset, while it's still day, before Shabbos. But Beit Hillel says, no, it's fine. You can keep it going. They put it in 1 minute before Shabbos. I'm not doing anything on Shabbos. What's happening? It's cooking along or soaking along, and the dye is being pulled out into solution. Okay, so that's Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says no. Beis Hillel says yes, and you're going to see they're all similar. Beis Shammai, next one. Beis Shammai omrim einot nim unim shel pishtan letoch hatanu. Unin are pieces of flax, and they would put them into the oven in order to whiten them. They would bleach them. The heat would bleach them as they were processing this flax into becoming linen strands. So einos nim unin shel pishtan letoch hatanu el kadesh yavhilo mibod yom. And unless there was enough time for them to whiten before while it's still day, okay, or yafhilo is actually become hot, so they will eventually become to be whitened out by the heating process. So once again, according to Beit Shammai, says you can't do it unless it's going to be done while it's day, and we haven't gotten to Beis Hillel yet, and Beis Hillel is going to say yes, you can do it. V'lo tetzemer, stop me if I'm going too quick. V'lo tetzemer leyoreh.
Wait, I get a question. This isn't eating. This is just.
This is not what?
What are you doing with this thing? What's the purpose?
It's part of the processing of the flax.
Yeah, but I mean, what are you trying to do?
Everything had to be processed by hand. You don't go into the store.
It's not involved in food.
No, but you can't. Malachas, there's certain malachas are not only food; they're about anything.
I know, I'm saying. Like,
So, for example, with malacha, you can't whiten things. You cannot whiten things. You can't color things on Shabbos. You can't whiten things. You can't clean things. You can't put them into something that's going to clean them. For example, one of the things that many people do, and it's really wrong, and everybody does it. I won't say everybody does it. Yeres does it. Okay, we all do it. Okay, what happens? You get a spot on your shirt, right? Something spills the meal. What's the first thing you do?
Put water on it.
Put water on it to whiten it out.
That's supposed to do that.
That's actually whitening it and cleaning it. Now we all do it without thinking, but it's really wrong. It's probably really a real malacha. So I'm saying, why are you doing this? He's the guy's processing stuff. He's not. In other words, if he starts it now on Friday, he'll be able to process this flax on Sunday and finish it up. So he wants to keep it going. Okay, makes sense. Okay, all right. So one is about you can't put the flax into the oven to be whitened out until unless it's day. And next is Los at Semer La Yora. El Kadei Sheikol Ayin. Semer is wool. A Yora was a pot, and they would have the dye get absorbed into the wool. So if you want to make anything that's wool is going to be colored, right? The wool that comes off the sheep is white or black, black, black.
They're not. We had mostly gray sheep.
Okay, gray sheep, white sheep, black sheep, whatever it is. You want other colors. So first you got to clean the wool. There's cleaning the wool. There's combing the wool. There's all different types of things. But you want to let it soak, so it'll soak for 24 hours, and it's going to be okay. You can go to work on Sunday morning. So once again, the same concept. The Beis Shammai says you can't do it unless it's going to be absorbed. Yiklot ha'ayin means the eye will be absorbed. In other words, the color will be visible to the eye while it's still day. Beis Hillel Matzir says, no, you can let it run over Shabbos. Okay, next. Beis Shammai omrim ein porsim mitzudas chai va'ofos v'dagim el kadei shiotzudu mibal yom. You can't set out traps for animals and birds and fish unless they can get caught while it's still day. You can't put the traps out and come back and pick them up on Sunday. Beit Hillel says it's okay because you're not doing any kind of work. Okay, Beis Shammai omrim.
What's the idea? When do you come back to pick up the animals?
They're trapped. You pick them up after Shabbos is over.
You put them in before Shabbos. So when according to the Beis Shammai, can you do it?
You can do it that you have enough time for to catch animals before Shabbos.
What does that mean to catch animals? How do you know how long it takes to catch the animal?
Well, then put them out in the morning. Don't put them out right before Shabbos. In other words, if you go out a half hour before Shabbos and you put out a trap or you put out fishing nets before Shabbos, it's just going to catch fish on Shabbos. Okay. And the same thing in the bird catches were they were like traps, like the bird stepped on, the animal stepped on, and fell into the hole. Okay, the fish were immobilized. So
you need the time to get trapped and to.
So in other words, the concept is I'm doing it so it should happen on Friday. I'm not doing it should happen on Shabbos. All of this is about stuff that's happening not automatically, but not by me directly. But the actual action is happening on Shabbos. And all these, Beis Hillel is the winner for you and I because Beis Hillel says it's okay. As long as you're not throwing out the net on Shabbos, if the net is put out before Shabbos, it's okay if the animal is caught on Shabbos itself. Okay, so next one, Beis Shammai omrim ein mochrim l'nochri ve'en tonim imo. You can't sell something to a non-Jew. You can't carry it with him. You can't load it on his donkey. Ve'en magbian alav, and you can't put the bundle on his shoulders like a pack, right? Like us peddlers used to carry. El kadei she'yagil l'makom karov, unless he has enough time to get to the a nearby place, which he can get there while it's still day. I don't have to make sure he gets all the way to where his final destination is, but it's got to be that he can get to a place where he can unload. And Beis Hillel says, okay, once again, this is not about inanimate. This is dealing with a guy with the same concept. Okay, it's all the same thing, but one more case. Beis Shammai omrim ein notnim orot la'abdam v'lo kelim l'koves nachri l'kadei she'asu mibod yom. That Beis Shammai says you can't give skins, pelts, to be tanned, which is a long, very arduous process, and you can't give utensils, or it should be probably means garments, not utensils, to a laundryman who's a nachri on right before Shabbos, unless he has time to do it on daytime. So in other words, if I go to the cleaners, I can't give it to the cleaners 5 minutes before Shabbos. I can give it to the cleaners in the morning. If the cleaner decides to do it on Shabbos, that's not my problem. Right? He does when he wants to, but he's not doing it directly when I give it to him. Okay, and Beis Hillel allows us all these as long as the sun is still up. While the sun is still there, as you slide into Shabbos, you see that sun still just hugging the horizon. You can do it. Okay, I'm going to skip over the last 4 lines of the Mishnah. We don't need it, and now I'm going to go down to a brisa on Yud Chet Amud Aleph, and there's 2 dots. Okay, you see the 2 dots? It's about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 lines on the top.
What are the words?
Tana Rabbanan Potke Maim Lagina. I want to say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 lines on the top of the lines of the Gemara on 18A, Yud Chet Amud Aleph. I don't know where. Don't you find it, Mr.?
Eventually.
Okay, I'm sure. Yeah, Tana Rabbanan Potke Maim Lagina. I'm sure Steinsaltz will have it at the beginning, and I suspect it'll be a new 18A. Okay, and I suspect that Sansina will have it in a new paragraph. Okay, So there's a Braita that's you'll see is related. Tan Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. Pot gemayim legina. This is about opening a water channel to water a garden on Erev Shabbos im chashecha. Im chashecha means at sunset, right before sunset. You can open the channel, the irrigation channel, to water to drip through the garden the next day. Umit maleit v'holechet kol hayam kulo. And they will drip through the entire day. Okay, and the Brisa says that's okay. Okay, does that make sense? Say it again. You can, right before Shabbos, you can open the irrigation channel,
Leave it on.
and you leave it on. You leave the tap running. Okay, there's not a tap probably as much as an irrigation channel that was coming off a river or a stream. So manichem but you're not doing anything on Shabbos. So manichem mugmar tachat hakelim, and you can put mugmar is a sweet smelling incense or sweet smelling type of perfume that was put on a fire that would hide and mask all the difficult odors that were probably in the houses. Okay, so it's called mugmar because it covered over it and completely covered over everything. It's like besamim, and they would actually use it like Febreze onto the garments. Only Febreze is a spray. This was something that they would smoke the garments with this kind of smell. So whatever the garment smelled from, and you can do your imagination about what hygiene was 2,000 years ago, right, and what garments probably smelled like before they had deodorants and all that kind of stuff. This was what they used. So you've set the fire up. You'll put the clothing there on top of it, not to burn, but to get this fragrance. And they will absorb, the garments will absorb the fragrance the entire day. So once again, you did it before Shabbos, you set it up before Shabbos, and it's going on autopilot the rest of the day. That's called mugmar. And the same thing, you put gofrit is sulfur, and this is something we mentioned last time that I don't fully understand it. They put sulfur under, well, maybe I do understand it. I understand why they did it. They put sulfur under the silver utensils so that it would turn into silver oxide. So it would blacken the utensils. Now this sounds counterintuitive to what your wife probably wants you to do, which is to clean the utensils. But this would highlight all the etchings on the utensils. This was what society did. So we do the other way around. But so you would put up the silver underneath the silver utensils with head etchings, and it would smoke through, and they'd see the etching stand out, and you go, whoa, how intricate. So that would, once again, you did before Shabbos, and it went all the way through Shabbos. Umisgafrin v'holchim kol Shabbos kulo. Umanichem kilor al gabe ayin. This is you put like a plaster on the eye. The same thing. It took in the medication on itself. Vispal lanis al gabe maka, and you put some kind of plaster on a wound. Umisrapet v'olechet kol yam kulo. Okay, so you can do all of this stuff on autopilot. We're going to leave out the ayin and the maka. You just get the general idea. All the stuff that's running on autopilot is good. There's only one exception to this rule. You can't put grain into the mill, the grinding mill, unless it would finish grinding while it's still day. So everything looks like it's okay according to this brisa, which would fit in with whose opinion in our Mishnah? Beit Hillel, right? Looks like Beit Hillel, except for the grinding of this grindstone. So we're just going to run through the points of the Gemara, and then we're going to go to the Gemara we asked. The Gemara wants to know what's the reason. Why is this grindstone any different? I mean, if it's good, if everything is good, is good, what's a shlech? If you can do everything, so why does the grindstone stand out? If anything grinds down is not in your house, it's down the block. And the Gemara first says because the grindstone makes a noise when there's friction with the grain going through. So once there's always noise coming out of a grindstone, out of a millstone, but it's a very, I guess, difficult noise when there's greater friction and it's grinding down on the grain to make it flour. So that's the Gemara's first answer. And then the Gemara's second answer is, and which would mean that Beis Hillel says it's fine, except that there's a problem of mashmiya kol. Mashmiya kol is not about making a sound like an instrument. It's going to disrupt people. It's going to be disturbing people. So you bad enough you get disturbed at night, but it's like a noise bylaw for Shabbos. People shouldn't have to hear this grain that is going around until late in the evening on Friday night, even though the stuff was put into the mill Friday afternoon before Shabbos, because until it gets ground, it's making this irritating grinding noise. It's just the reality. So that's what the Gemara first says. But really, Rabbi Beis Hillel would say it's okay for everything else, and the kelim would be okay. And then the Gemara says, no, maybe this follows the opinion that shvitat kelim is asur. And the Beis Hillel will say shvitat kelim is prohibited, and that's why you can't have the grindstone. So that's the Gemara says. The Gemara then has to deal with, well, if that's the case, how come everything else is okay? How come you can have the mugmar underneath the garments, and you can have the sulfur, and you can have everything that there is? And the Gemara's first response is, well, you're not really doing anything. With the grindstone, something is happening. The mugmar is really kind of a little amorphous. You can't really see this. The fire is going on its own. You're not doing anything directly in terms of mamlach. It's just powdering or sending out some kind of fragrance to fragrance the garments. But the bottom line is the Gemara comes back at the end and says, no, that really this idea of shvidat kelim is not Beit Hillel, it's Beit Shammai. The one who says that it's prohibited to do all this is Beit Shammai, and Beit Hillel says, really, your utensils don't have to rest. Why can you not have the grindstone then? Because of the noise. But if not for the noise, everything would be okay. Okay? Who would say that your utensils have to rest? Beit Shammai, okay? So Beit Shammai will have to find out that why other things would be permissible on Shabbos if you say that your utensils have to rest. Okay, so for example, according to Beit Shammai, here's the question that's going to pop up. If I'm a beer maker, okay, I'm making beer. Now the beer has to ferment for how long?
2 days.
8 days. 8 days. Rashi says 8 days. And if you've ever made beer, we used to have this guy kettle and press, right? I don't know. People went to make beer with him. You had to come back in 2 weeks. So it's making beer over Shabbos. Right? So how can you make beer over Shabbos? And the answer is you're not making beer. The beer is making itself. But according to Beit Shammai, would be a problem. How can you light a candle Erev Shabbos? Right? I mean, it sounds like Karaite Judaism, right? But if you think about it, everything that's on its own would have to find a way. Wow. So Beit Shammai has to give like crazy answers to say, well, maybe I'm
those things that are permissible.
For those things that are permissible to do. So Beit Shammai says, well, if you light the candles, then you're making the candles hefker. If you go in the beer keg or cask is on its own because you're making it hefker. All these kinds of things. Now, question is, what does it mean it's hefker? Do you have to get up and say, I make my candles hefker? So a lot of the Rishonim say it doesn't mean that you have to say it. It means this is what the Chachamim put in place, an order process to allow a fiction to allow you to do according to Beit Shammai.
So if a guy came in and he took beer out of the thing, you wouldn't be able to say anything to him.
Supposedly, correct. Right, correct. Okay?
Or you took your candle in it, huh?
Right, if you took your silver candlesticks, would be a better example. Correct. That's a
better one.
Okay? So that's what the Gemara says, that according to Beit Shammai, you have to say that the mafkir, that's the third line on Amud Bet, Yud Chet Amud Bet, and here's we're going to jump in. So according to Beit Shammai, who says that Shvitat Kelim is going to be prohibited. So first of all, how can you, we can start at the top line, just until we jump into it slowly. Mugmar v'gafrit, my time is Shor Beit Shammai. Why would Beit Shammai allow you to fragrance-ize your clothes with this smoky Febreze? Right? Isn't that also taking place on its own? So you'd have to say Hasam Manach Ara. It's really on the ground and it's not a kli. In other words, the mugmar is coming off, it's put into the fire. It's not like I have a utensil that's creating the fragrance. It's this fire that is not in a utensil. If I had a utensil, my utensil would have to rest. But the mugmar or the sulfur that's coming to sulfurize these utensils is not in a kli. It's simply thrown into the fire, into the mix, and therefore it smokes up from it. But if I had a specific utensil, if I had a pot, my pot would have to rest. Then the Gemara says, Hasam Manachara, it's resting on the ground. What about gigit? Gigit is this barrel where you're making beer or some kind of fermenting liquor. Vener, and you have a candle where you light on Shabbos, or Kedera, I forgot what the Kedera was, but Shipud. Shipud was where they would have to, when they roasted the Korban Pesach, so when they roasted the Korban Pesach, and sometimes Pesach does come out on Friday night, so yes, you know that, right? Yes, Friday night can be Pesach. So they would actually slaughter the Korban Pesach on Erev Pesach, right? And then they would roast it, and they would begin the process of roasting before sunset, and they would pull it out on sunset. So how would they roast it? So the Pesach has to be eaten whole, to be roasted whole. So they put like a shipud, think of it as a big skewer, and they would actually put it into this, they had like big ovens, and they would put the skewer into the oven. Think of these like these big lava kinds of ovens. They would stick the animal in, and that's how it would get roasted, and then they would take the skewer out. But the bottom line is this animal is roasting on Shabbos. How can you do it? And you can't say, well, it's not just a meal, it's Korban Pesach, you gotta eat it. So that's why you'd have to say all these cases are my time of Shor Beis Shammai. Why would Beis Shammai say the mafkir yavkuri? Beis Shammai would have to say you make it hefker. And as I told you, a lot of Rishonim say you don't have to say it. You don't have to get up in three people and say that you have to make hefker in front of people, but rather it is it's automatic that we're relying upon the Beis Din who says this according to Beis Shammai. Now, the practically speaking is we don't follow Beis Shammai. We don't follow Beit Shammai, so you don't have to worry about doing it.
Don't worry.
Like wine might ferment a few weeks, or whatever.
Right, same problem.
A week, yeah. But then it's hefker, and then you take it back. Is it stam yonim? I don't know.
It's only stam yonim if the guy comes to open it up. It's a closed keg.
And it's hefker doesn't matter.
No, the hefker doesn't matter. It's in it's yours.
Okay.
I mean, it's not yours. It's in your. That's what I'm saying. It's a kind of.
How can it be hefker in your house?
So that's why the Rishonim saying, including Tosa says that this is really kind of thing that the based in, we follow everything. There's a rule that says hefker based in hefker. We have a rule that the based in can say that what I own does not belong to me. There's a right of eminent domain. The city can come in and grab my property. They have to pay me for it, but we all build ourselves upon the laws of the Beit Din. So we bind ourselves to that. We assume that the Beit Din is going to be fair and just, and if I come out a loser one time, they'll make it good to me. So therefore, if the Beit Din decides that this is not mine, I can't say I don't like you. I can't be in breach of the legal decision of the Beit Din, hefker based in hefker. So this is an automatically hefker based in hefker. Once again, it's not that great a concern because once again we do not follow Beit Shammai, right?
But I'm just
so
saying,
for the Beit Shammai people, it would have been these are the issues that they have to work out. Neville,
Korban Pesach, you have to own. You can't give it up.
You have to own it when you slaughter it. You have to own it when you have to be part of the chabura.
People can eat it.
You're right. You're right. It's a tremendous fiction. I agree. I don't have a good answer. It's a fiction on a fiction, correct? I'm saying at that point, while it's cooking, I'm being hefker of the until I pull it out. Once I take it out, it's back to being mine again. I don't have a better answer. But once again, they're only worried about this because you've got to make this work from a legal construct, not from a halachic construct. Because Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, we always follow Beis Hillel. Okay. Now, so the bottom line is, and let's bring this back to where we're going to make this work. Beis Hillel would have no problems with this.
With any of this.
Right, because if you want to sulfurize your garments or your kalim and you want to Febreze smoke out your garments for the smell, why is that not a problem?
Because there's no gas.
Because you're doing nothing. It's running on autopilot, right? It's like your ovens that are running, right? It's like all these kinds of things that work on their own.
Rechaim is the only one that had a problem.
The only one is the Rechaim, and we're assuming now, and that's the big conclusion really, doesn't come back to it, but that the Rechaim is a specific problem because it makes it weekday. You feel it's bad because you hear all this non-Shabbos noise. I once spent Shabbos in New York City, in downtown Manhattan, okay? And I never felt non-Shabbos as I did that morning. Because of the traffic. I remember get up in the morning at 8 o'clock to go to shul, and it's not like it's a city never sleeps,
right?
But it doesn't sleep on Shabbos either,
right?
And there's you got to watch. We are walking and crossing here. It's not a halachic statement.
It slows down on Shabbos.
Here it's the Shabbos morning. You walk to shul unless you walk really very late. But I would say people are relaxing. Your neighbors are relaxing. It's not a halachic statement about driving because we have many people unfortunately who are driving. But you get the feeling it's a day of rest. Not in Midtown Manhattan. It's the same thing here. If you have the the mill grinding Friday night, it's going to be a very difficult kind of noise to go with. I don't know what a mill sounds like, but I imagine that stands out. That's why they all had mill streets, right? All had tannery streets, because these were things in each town. Anyways, let's go now. The Gemara is now going to say we have a brisa, third brisa, another brisa we're going to bring, and we're going to try to identify who the author is. Okay, so once again, before we do it again, if it was Beit Shammai, what would you expect it to be?
Not allowed to do
Not allowed to do things on autopilot. If it's Beit Hill, you expect it to be on autopilot, would work well. So okay, Man Tana Lahad Tan Rabbanan. Who is? That's why I have to give you the whole introduction. Who is the author of the following brisa? Lo tamale isha kedera asasoyit v'turmasin v'tanech letoch hatanur. So turmasin and asasonit are some kind of legume that requires a lot of cooking. And so a woman could not do it. I'm sorry, I stopped in the middle of a sentence. A woman can put a plate of this asasit and turmusin. Turmusin is, I'll tell you what it is. Turmusin, I believe, are something called lupines. Lupines. I think it's lupines. I once looked it up. It's a vegetable. It's not vegetable. It's a legume. It requires a lot of cooking to make it palatable and eatable. So you've got to cook and cook and cook to take away the bitterness.
Rav Stanzel just says mine kidneyot.
Okay.
Some kind of
So I actually believe because I once looked this up. I think it was turmeric.
I'm trying to find it here.
That there was actually used in a number of countries, including in South America. However, when the Spanish came to South America, they made the natives stop using it because they didn't like all the trouble that it took to make this, and they introduced all the wet.
South America wasn't discovered until hundreds of years after the Gemara.
Of course not. That's why they're using it in time of the Gemara. But I'm saying, but it was actually used by the indigenous people, even in South America. It doesn't only grow in Babylonia or in Israel.
Right.
It grows in a lot of places.
And it turns out that it is a problem.
So in other words, but I'm saying, but this the advantage of it was probably very healthy. The disadvantage, it took a lot. You have to. The Gemara says in a different place in the Shabbos, you have to cook it 7 times. Every time you cook it, then you have to take away the bad stuff. Then you have to leave the good stuff. It actually comes up in Borer as well. Because what do you take? I'm sorry. It's a kidney. So
Kind of kidney.
it's a kind of kidney, but the point of it being, it requires. It's a it's going to be a bean. It could be a legume. It could be whatever it is. Okay. In other words, it's not a cereal grain. Okay, it's not a cereal grain that you would expect to be a staff of life. So the Brisa says the woman who is doing the cooking, she can't take this plate or this pot of asisiot and turmosin and put it inside the oven erev Shabbos im chashecha, Friday as the sun is going down. Right, because what's going to happen to it? It's going to cook all the way through Shabbos. V'im nasnan, and if she did so, lamatzei Shabbos asurim b'chtei shiasu ki yotzei bo. If you do it this way, you've got to wait to use it on Matzei Shabbos as long as it would normally take to do the cooking. So that's significant because this takes a lot of cooking. Right. She thought she'd be smart and she put it into the oven, right? And because it normally takes 7 cooking times, let's assume every time is a half hour, an hour, whatever it is. So you have to wait 7 hours after Havdalah until you could eat it again. Okay? So that's the first case. Now, second case is similar. Lo yimale nachtam chavish shamayim v'yaniach letoch hatanur erev Shabbos im chashecha. Nachtam is a baker, and he's got some kind of chavit, which we normally say is a barrel. By the way, barrels usually were made of clay. They don't really have barrels like we know it, like you're thinking of these big kegs of wood.
Amphora, they're called.
Okay.
Amphora, like shaped like
right. Okay. In the days of the Mishnah. Okay. So sometimes you use other terms, but they all mean the same thing. So he has this chavit of mayim. He puts it inside the oven and wants to heat it up, and he puts it Friday right before dark. V'yimasa kain, and if he did it this way, lematzei Shabbos asurim b'chtei shiasu. Same thing that you has to wait Saturday night to use this boiling hot water for the amount of time that it would normally take to kind of boil up. Okay, so this is the 2 cases. Right. Now, the 2 cases are very similar. Yeah. Who is the author of this brisa?
You would think that it's...
you would think it's Beit Shammai. You think it's Beit Shammai. He's the guy, we just spent all this time explaining that Beit Shammai is the guy that says that Shvitat Kalim is also in Torah. You got to let your utensils rest. And if you don't let your utensils rest, right? There's a booby price. You got to wait after Shabbos for it to have the same amount of time. You get like, it's not punishment, but you can't benefit
Yeah,
from the
you
fact
benefit by
you can't
doing it.
benefit from that time. Okay. So Gemara says, "Leima Beit Shammai hi v'lo Beit Hillel." Oh, let's say this is Beit Shammai. That's not such a good thing because you really want to have brises to link into Beit Hillel. Your logic would say that if you have a bris and there's no name associated with it, and it was passed along, it's of halachic significance. You don't want to say it's Beit Shammai. So the Gemara seems to say, "Oh, this looks like Beit Shammai." So the Gemara says, because Beit Hillel should be okay. So the Gemara says, "V'lo Beit Hillel." So the Gemara says, "No, not true." And here the Gemara introduces something else. Afilu Tema Beit Hillel, and this actually becomes a very important halachic piece that comes out of this Gemara. Afilu Tema Beit Hillel. You could even say it's Beit Hillel, and it should be okay. But why is it wrong? Why is it prohibited? Gezerah Shem Yechata Begecholim. The concern is that you may come to stir the coals. You have the oven, right? These ovens were, once again, think of an external kind of, I'm trying to think of what kind of example we could give. They look like laffa ovens. Do you ever see laffa ovens? Right.
Yeah, they're like this.
They're like this, right? Yeah, there are two kinds of ovens. There's a kira, which is a double oven, it's twice as big, and then there's a tana, which is a single oven. But basically, you have an opening on the top that you pop open, and when you make bread, they do it just like they make lavas. They slap it onto the side of the oven, right? And that's how they did it then. You would put some kind of something into this oven that would become cooking, but underneath the oven, you have some kind of fire that's heating it all up, right? It's in the oven so that the heat is spread around equally. That's the advantage of putting that in the oven rather directly on the fire, like a barbecue. But this is the way that it was done. Now, you don't have a really. Usually, you had a top, and there was some kind of simple, flip time the top back and forth, or to put something on top to keep the heat in. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't like our ovens that you have a door and it closes and you have shelves and everything else. It's a lot more primitive. So the concern is that you've put the stuff in there and it's beginning to cook too quickly, or maybe not quick enough. So you begin to stir up not the food. You can maybe an issue of stirring the food as well. For this, we'll talk about megis, which is stirring in a couple of moments. But right now, yichata begacholi means you may stir up the coals. Right, and that's, by the way, that is a problem that comes up halachically today. The issue that we have about putting a blech, right, and food that's cooked, and you put a blech on, really any kind of blech that's used is supposed to cover the controls. Many people, the blech today may not do that, right? But the blech, the real blech, there's a covering. You're covering the element, and you're also covering over the controls.
You see in New York, they got these.
Right,
the controls are down here.
Right, the old style ovens had the controls in front. Years ago, someone had the smart idea this was not a good thing for kids. They put the controls in the back, right? But so they don't really build the blech that goes up. Probably would melt what's behind it. But that's really where the blech is all about. So the blech is really a way. It's not you can't cook with a blech. You can't cook with a blech, but in terms of heating up things, right, that are cooked already. So the problem if you don't have a blech, what should be the problem? I don't have a blech. It's already cooked. My food is cooked. I want to warm it. I'll put it directly on the fire. And the answer is shemi yechata b'gecholim. I don't have coals. I don't have coals underneath, but I do have a control. So that's really what the blech was meant to kind of get around to. It's more complicated than that because there's differences between solids and liquids. But the blech is really a way to get around that I cannot get to the coals. I can't get to the controls in this case. So the Gemara says at any rate, according to Beis Hillel, you're right, everything can go on its own. It's fine. But we got a special problem here, either with the guy putting the water into the oven, or the woman who's trying to cook all these turmusim into the oven. And what's the concern? The concern has nothing to do with Shvitat Kalim. No, your Kalim can keep going on autopilot. But Gzeira Shem Yechata Begacholim. Okay? Now, there may be cases that there's not a problem with Shem Yechata Begacholim. And the Gemara will come to discuss those. If we get a chance, we'll get to them today. But that's, in other words, it sounds like a side problem. Practically speaking, it becomes a major problem because you usually have coals or controls or something in terms of every kind of oven. We don't have coals.
Even the other one we had before.
Right, correct. So now, The problem, the immediate challenge the Gemara has, everybody understand where we're going?
Yeah.
The immediate challenge the Gemara has now is to explain if there is a problem, and it's not Shvitat Kalim, but the problem is Shema Yichad Begecholim, what about all the stuff we had when the Bryce I showed you, the Beis Hillel says it's fine.
Yeah, like putting aside the smelly.
The smelly sulfur stuff and the fragrant stuff, how come that's not, where's the problem of the coals? Isn't there coals there too? It's coming off a fire. Aren't you going to kind of shake it up?
Absolutely.
Right, so the Gemara is going to ask that question. So the bottom line is, let's just take a deep breath at this point. Beis Hillel says there's no problem of Shvitat Kalim. There is a problem of Shema Yechate Begecholim. There may be a problem also of Megis, of stirring, we're going to come to in a couple of lines. But we therefore need to explain that all the cases we saw until now that are fine, or at least some of them, why is it not a problem of stirring? Why is it not a problem of stirring up the coals? Which may not be a problem of Shvitat Kalim, but surely it becomes a halachic problem. Okay, it's a Drabanan problem. So now let's go back, jump into the Gemara. So the Gemara says, Safila Tema Beit Hillel, Gzeira Shem Yechad Begechalim. So far, everybody with me? So, because we go into the next piece, I want to show you all with me in the reading. Ihachi Aleph Hey. Ihachi says the Gemara, Mugmar V'Gafrit Nami. Ligzar, Nami Ligzar. Let's also make a concern about the mugmar. You guys you jumped out of the question, right? The mugmar is this fragrant stuff. The gafrit is the sulfur oxide stuff. This should also be a problem. So Gemara says, Hatam lo machti lahu. In these kind of cases, you're not going to stir up the coals. Why are you not going to stir up the coals? Okay, so there is a difference between the kind of fire or the kind of way this fragrance is coming off the fire than it is in the oven. In the oven, I've got the food inside. And the heat is being spread all around. So if the coals die down, I need to bring them higher. If the coals are too high, I need to kind of dampen them down. But if I start to monkey with this kind of fire, and it becomes smoky, right, because I put the fire out or I make the fire greater, it's not going to affect the food inside the oven. Why not? Because the oven is closed. Right? It's not going to affect the food inside the oven because I just made the smoke is going to smoke up the whole kitchen area. But it's not going to smoke up the food. But what am I actually doing with the other cases, the sulfur oxide in the case of the mugmar? What is exactly I'm doing? I'm causing smoke to come up. If I start monkeying with the coals, because I think there's not enough fragrance coming up or too much fragrance, what could be the reaction? I suddenly smoke up my house, and the whole house fills up with smoke, because this was actually done in the living area. This was not done in necessarily a kitchen, which may have been external to the house. It was done in the living area. It was done where my clothes are. It was done to kind of make the house smell nicely. The last thing I want to do in my house is have it full of smoke.
The tanur we're saying was always outside.
And the tanur was outside. The tanur was usually outside, unless they had to bring it in because of the rain. Right? And if it was inside, it wasn't really where people were. It was like probably a little corner underneath some kind of chimney. So, but this is the mugmar is really right in the house. Whereas think of it as like where do you hang your clothing up? Where do you air your clothing out? You probably have a laundry room of some sort, right? But you didn't have laundry rooms. Everything was one room house. Where are you going to? You have your fancy utensils out there. You want everybody to see the etchings, your fine china, your fine silver. So where's the smoke coming off the thing? The gafrunis. It's coming right in your dining area. So forget your guests. You don't want to be choking on the smoke. So you're not going to monkey with that. Once you light it and you're happy with what it is, and you did the lighting before Shabbos, right? You're not going to monkey with this thing on Shabbos itself, because what will happen? The machdi saluk beik bahu kitra, that kutra smoke. It's going to cause smoke to come out. V'kashulahu, and it's going to be very difficult for you when too much smoke comes out, and you'll choke on it, and the clothing will choke on it, and so forth and so on. So therefore, mugmar and gafris. It's okay according to Beis Hillel. Now, let's go. We have one that came up in the Mishnah. Unin shel pishtan. Unin shel pishtan was these bundles of flax. Remember what they did with them? They put them into the oven. To get white, right? To be bleached. Okay. So unin shel pishtan nami ligzar. Let's also say that you were afraid that you may come to mix up the coals, right? So Gemara says the same thing. Kaven the kashilu zika. Lo maglile. So seeing that the smoke is going to come up, it will be difficult for it. You wouldn't do it. So in other words,
also in the tanur.
So it's a tanur, but I'm not quite sure why this would be what it is. But it looks like, but it looks, I almost get the feeling it's like you kind of had the oven open. You've got these things on the oven to kind of pick up some of the heat of the oven. What was the phrase here? No, it says letocha tanur, right? So and more importantly, I guess it's if you want to whiten something, right? So with food, I guess a little bit of smoke is not going to make that much of a difference. With whitening, the last thing you want is any kind of smoke that's going to come up. I don't know. Okay, but anyways, the Gemara feels that once again it's not something that you would want to monkey with, because it could have a bad effect upon the whitening of this flax, of this linen strands, or these bundles of flax. Okay, so therefore, according to Beis Hillel, can you do it? Yeah. Get it, put it in the oven before Shabbos, and it runs on itself. It'll just whiten itself over Shabbos. And I'm not going to monkey with the coals. Next thing, tzemer leyorem. This was you put the tzemer is the wool into the pot. The pot is boiling, and it's going to absorb the dye. So ligzar. Let's say the same thing that you may come to mix around the coals. So Amar Shmuel. So Shmuel gives a different answer here. Apparently, you couldn't say whether the dye would get smoky. There may not be a problem with smoky dye. Amar Shmuel biyora akura. Yora akura is the pot is off of the. I believe it means it's off of the fire. Right? It's taken off the fire. In other words, it's a boiling pot. The fire it's no longer on the fire. This is not about being in the tanur. You've got a pot that's boiling hot, or you want it to soak. The key here is the amount of time it will soak to absorb the color. It's not an important thing about having heat in this process. Heat may be needed to start it, but as it begins to absorb the dye, the important thing is that it sits in the liquid, sits in the solution, and the dye is absorbed into the wool. So therefore, there's no coals. The fire is out. It's off the fire.
Uh-huh.
Okay, in other words, apparently you put it on the fire to get it going, then you took it off and you let it sit for multiple hours, so that the dye would permeate all the fibers of the wool. So it's not a dye. Apparently it's heated, but it's not something that still has an active fire under it. So the Gemara says, the Gemara says, "V'neicha shema magisba." So the Gemara says, what about stirring it up? And it's would be considered like by cooking it again, because as you stir things up, you bring them closer to the hotter parts of the actual pot. So even though the Gemara even though it's off of the fire, but still the Gemara is concerned about stirring up the liquid to try, because the reality is it's not just that it's going to get hotter, you're going to cause more of the dye to permeate. You've got more surface area that's now being exposed as you move this around. So you're really causing it to take place. So aren't we concerned that I'm going to look down into the pot and see that some, like it's going to be like a tie-dye. Some of the wool is going to be darker blue, some of the wool will be lighter blue, and therefore I'm going to mix up the dye again to kind of redistribute it. So the Gemara says, no, why is that not a problem? Be akura v'tucha. That's the case where it's off. Akura means it's off the fire, and tucha, it means it's sealed, it's closed. So I have this pot I guess it's on the stove fire is out. I've actually closed the top, so I've sealed the lid. And therefore I'm not worried about mixing up the coals, because the coals are no longer there. And I'm not worried about stirring it up, because there's too much trouble to kind of break the top. I have to break the seal to open it up. Okay? So far so good? I think and at this point, do we have anything to defend Beis Hillel?
Exactly.
Right. But this, by the way, is the real key to this all. That Beis Hillel says it's okay. There is the secondary problem of Yishami Echad B'Gechalim.
Right.
There's a secondary problem about Megis, about stirring.
Right.
But really, the Kalim themselves can work on their own. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the malacha of stirring?
It's actually, it would depend on what you're doing. If it were cooking, it'd be mavashel, right? So, for example, if you open a pot and it's on the oven and you stir things up, you are actually bringing things closer to the fire. That's a problem on Shabbos, right? If you have you want to stir the cholent, so
some gets closer, some gets farther.
right. So the stuff that's on top is going to get closer. So knows when you want to stir the cholent, you need to take it off the fire. Okay, something like that. Or in this case, I believe the problem is tzoveya. Tzoveya is actually, that's why we want to do the seventh parak. One of the prohibited malachos is dyeing, dye, which are all the malachos of Shabbos or 39 malachas are there because they were needed to build the Mishkan. So, not necessarily to use during the Mishkan, while the Mishkan was in sacrificial rites, but rather to build it together. And many of the skins that covered and the curtains were colored with different colors. You probably will all, if I say chalazon, the tcheles, right? But there's also tcheles, argamon, tolat shani, right? There's different colors that were there. So the part of the malachos is about planting and harvesting and this and that and dyeing, because it's all about dyeing and coloring and whitening and bleaching, because it's all about the process of preparing and building the Mishkan. So therefore, I believe in this case, the concern is that the dye hasn't spread around equally. That sounds like a real problem.
Yeah,
Except, why is it not a problem? Because you've sealed the top. So you say, well, I can break the seal. Yes, you could break the seal. But it's not like we close our oven, right? And you just open it and close it. This apparently you had to manually seal it shut. You probably didn't want anyone to kind of get in there either while the dye is being absorbed, right? Maybe they would spill it, they would monkey with it, they'd get the dye on themselves, it would get out, it would get lost, whatever it is. So therefore, that's what it says. So the case that we're talking about, the only time that this would be permissible, according to Beis Hillel, would be Yoreh, Akura, Vitucha. Okay, it's off. There's no active coals, and it's removed from the coals, or the coals removed from it, and Tucha, it's sealed up. Okay, so now V'hashta di'amamar. Okay, so we've come now basically to a place that we can take a deep breath, because now everything falls into these premises. Now that we said that the concern that we're talking about in the case of the Bryce about the woman with the turmusin and the nachtom who's trying to cook this water is really about you're afraid to stir the coals. Hai kedera chaisa shari lianucha erev Shabbos imchashecha b'tanura. If you have a pot, which means it's raw. You have raw meat in the pot, or raw food in the pot. It's really raw. It's good. This is going to sound like it's anti-Shabbos in a moment, but you have this pot that has fresh raw food into it. Shari is permissible to put it erev Shabbos imchashecha in the tanur. I can put it into the tanur. Because what's my concern? What was the concern we had according to Beis Hillel? Not about the oven that's working. The concern is what about the coals, right? But this food that I'm putting into the oven now, I can't eat. It's not going to be ready till the morning, because it's brand new. It's like it sounds anti-halachic almost. It's brand new food that is not ready. So it's not that I'm going to, I've done 75% of it, and I'm going to go check later on in an hour to see, do I need to make it a little higher, a little lower, do I need to stir it, not stir it? It's nothing. Nothing is going to happen until I go to sleep, after I go to sleep. That's how the ovens were built. So therefore, I'm not even going to go, because the Gemara says, my taima, keven lo chazi le'urta, seeing it's not going to be usable for tonight, urta is at night, asuche mesach naiti minei. It's out of my mind. And I'm not going to come to stir up the coals. Uvaso shaper tfei. And I'm not going to come and make it cook even quicker, because I'm not going to look at it till tomorrow. It's like one big chill until the next day. So therefore, I can put in meat, or food I should say, that's actually really raw. It's better to put in food that's raw than to put in food that's cooked, or food that's almost cooked.
But now I think that now I am a little bit lost, because the two cases at the very beginning, right,
right,
we said that the woman cannot, these special, let's call them beans, legumes, that have to cook for hours and hours and hours. Everybody agrees that they're not going to be ready tonight. That was her idea, presumably we said, was, I'll save time. Motzei Shabbos, they'll already reach the point where I can deal with them.
So Rashi asks that question. Rashi says, as far as everybody understand Murph's question, Murph said basically the previous case we had was about this woman who's got this ashishios and turmusin, which takes for 7 different times. You got to cook it back and forth and back and forth. And we said that was a case about we're concerned you may come to stir the coals. And now we're saying that if you put in food that is it's not going to be ready for a faraway time, right? It's okay. So why was the woman before with this turmusin not okay? So Rashi says like this. You guys smirk. Rashi says these turmusin actually takes such a long time that I'm going to be checking it tomorrow. The food I'm putting in, if I put in food that's not cooked, When's it going to be ready? It's going to be ready tomorrow. Right? It's going to be ready. Now, don't think you're going to the shul here and you get out at 1 o'clock. You went to get up in the morning, went to daven, they ate. So you're eating at 10 o'clock. But no, the first time I'm going to look at this is in the morning. It's either cooked or not cooked. Now, sunset is coming down at 6 o'clock. I go to sleep at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Nothing's happening for the first 4 hours. The next 6 hours or 7, 8 hours, I'm asleep. I wake up in the morning. It's either cooked or not cooked. There's nothing I can do with it. It's time to serve it. The turmicin requires so much time throughout all of Shabbos. I told you it was a very labor-intensive kind of food. And the Gemara says you have to cook it 7 times, and each time you have to take out the good stuff and the bad stuff and the bad stuff and the good stuff. It's like you can't even imagine. That's why the Spanish didn't want to use this. They're modern.
So is it the gechalim or is it the fact I'll keep checking?
The fact that I've got to keep it's not going to be ready in the morning.
Right.
Rashi says v'lodami la shishios v'turmus and shein kol halayla v'yom dai lohem. So it's not even enough. So I'm going to keep checking during the day for the turmicin to see when it will be ready, because I've got to make sure it keeps going through the next day. Whereas normally the assumption was I put the food in at night. It's like a slow cooker. I put it in at night. It's ready in the morning. You put your chulent in on Friday. It's ready the next day. This is such a process that you cook and you cook and you cook. Now Rashi doesn't say this, but I think the problem with turmicin, it's not just that it cooks a long time. It cooks multiple times. So in other words, it cooks and cooks and cooks, and then you've got to check it to make sure everything is cooked, and then cook it again. So in other words, it's not even that it's just cooking a long time. There are different stages within the process. So that's why I think that's a difference. But Rashi clearly tries to grapple with the fact that the turmicin is out, and this case here, with the food is going to be not till ready till the morning, is in. Okay, it's a good question. So at any rate, the first case we have, the first exception to the rule is if you have really fresh food, or chai is really like raw food, chai is raw, you can actually put it in because you're not concerned about, tonight you're not going to look at it, and tomorrow it's already done. Okay? Now, Bashil, I'm not sure if you guys have lost the place. Bashil v'lo Bashil, Bashil v'lo Bashil spans 2 lines. Okay? Bashil v'lo Bashil, if it's cooked and not cooked. Okay, so did I skip a line? So I read something not wrong. I mean,
Kevan de lo kazi larta.
Okay.
Asoche, what's on there? That's where it ends. Gechalim, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped the word.
Yeah.
Let me do it again. I'll start from the High Kedeva, where the star is in a little hey. High Kedeva chayis shorle anuchayev Shabbos imchashecha b'tanura. The Kedeva, the pot that has raw food into which you can put it in. Why my time? Memtes kevin lo chazi leorta is not good for tonight. So asuchem mesich taite you took your mind off it. V'lo asi lachtoy begechalim. Okay, that's where the period should be. Right. You're not going to mix up the coals because there's nothing going to happen tonight. You can't tell at 9 o'clock at night what's going to be tomorrow. Next case, ubashil, if the food is completely cooked, shapir dami. I surely can put it into the fire. Why? Because it's already cooked. Right? I don't need to monkey with the coals.
So what am I putting on the fire for? To keep it warm.
Keep it warm. I've got food that's completely cooked. I want hot food tonight. I don't have to have cold food. But what about the food? What about mixing the coals? No. More coals, less coals, the same food. Can't get any hotter.
Better be careful. If they get too hot, it'll overcook. But let's say
maybe overcook, it may burn. You're right, correct. But basically, the real concern here is, I guess, it's undercooked or it's completely overcooked over a long period of time. So this is not the exact kinds of temperature controls that you have on your ovens. Okay. Now, bashil, v'lo bashil, asur. See, if some of it's cooked and some of it's not cooked, or it's a little bit cooked and a little bit not cooked, it's partially cooked. That's where it's asur. Okay, so in other words, where's the case here that I'm concerned about where I may come to move around the coals, says the Gemara at this point, that some of it is it's partially cooked. So it's cooked, but it still needs to be cooked more. Okay. And then the Gemara says, "V'shade begar machaya." If I throw in a piece of raw meat, shapir dummy, then I'm okay. So I've got this food in there that's a little bit cooked, it's a little bit not cooked. What I'm really concerned about, I may come to move around the coals. But what I put in there, I put in raw meat. If I put in raw meat, I can't take it out now, because the raw meat is raw meat. So what happens with raw meat? You got to let it sit and cook all night again. So the raw meat allows this to be considered like I've got something there that is very raw, like fresh, And once again, it's out of my. I'm not going to monkey with the coals because otherwise it may come to effect. I'm not because it's out of my mind because the meat has to stay all night.
Even though some of the stuff that
Even though
wasn't
some of
quite
this
cooked,
is
get
going.
cooked.
Right. Correct. Okay. Okay. Now, v'hashta del mamar. And now that we've said, kol mida the kashule zika lo maglile, okay, now anything which the smoke is going to be affected, I'm not going to open the oven. Haibisra the gadja v'sharik shapir dami. If I have sharik is it's actually sealed, very tight. If I have a meat of a gedi, a young kid, and visharik, and it's a sealed oven. It's sealed with tzitzis, Rashi, sealed with mortar. So shaper dummy, I can cook. I'm not going to stir the coals because I can't see what's inside. Okay, and it's probably going to be cooked right away, so I'm not worried the coals are going to go out and have an effect upon it because this kid is very tender meat, the baby goat, and the oven is sealed, so I'm not going to monkey with the coals. The barcha v'lo sharik, if I have a steer or a cow, a bull, whatever it is, and the oven is not tightly sealed or not closed up, asur, then I can't put it into the fire because what's my concern? The meat is more hard. I need to make sure the coals stay active, and the oven is openable. Now the gadya v'lo sharik, okay, if I have gedi meat, kid meat, and the oven is not sealed, or the barcha v'sharik, or I have steer and the oven is sealed. So what is that? It's one of each of them, right? It's like one of these Talmudic questions. Rav Ashi Shari, Rav Yirmiyah Midifnei Aser. Okay, so Rav Ashi says you can, and Rav Yirmiyah Midifnei says you can. So that's what the Gemara says. Now, 1 second. The Gemara is one piece, and we can stay for maybe a minute or so. Well, Rav Ashi the Shari, and according to Rav Ashi, says it's okay to cook this when you have gedi and it's not sealed, or you have the steer and it is sealed. It says, but the Brisa says, or the Mishnah says, "Ein solim basar batzel ubeitza el kadesh yatzulim mibodjom." So we have a Brisa that says I can't roast meat. I can't roast meat. Batzel is an onion. A beitza is an egg, unless it's completely roasted before while it's still day. So why would it not be okay? So the Gemara says. So the Gemara says hasam de barcha v'lo sharik. So you have to say that must be a case where it's steer meat and it's not covered at all, which everybody says is prohibited. Or ika di amre, or some say the gadya bein sharik bein lo sharik shaper dummy. The barcha that where there's another version of this. That a gedi, whether it's sealed or it's not sealed, it's okay to cook. The barcha nami b'sharik shapir, where you have a steer and a sealed is okay. Keep shari dami, keep pligi the barcha v'lo sharik. The only time the machlokas was between Rav Ashi and between Rav Yirmiyah midifni was where you have a steer and it's not sealed. The Rav Ashi shari, Rav Yirmiyah midifni asir. Okay, so just a variation on that. If you permit me, I'd like to finish 5 more lines so we can get to the 2 dots. Okay, there's one final question the Gemara has, which goes back to the same question about the basar and the batzel and the beya, except it has another kind of answer. Rav Ashi the shari, according to Rav Ashi, it says looks like everything is okay. Pretty much everything is okay, except unless you had barcha and it was not sealed. V'yatanya v'yatnan ein solim basar batzel beitza el kadesh yatzulim mebod. How come this Brisa says you can't do it? It's got to be cooked before day. So the Gemara says hasam bebisra agumre. Right, that the case that where it's prohibited is a different kind of case. Basra means basar. It's gumre is not an oven. Gumre is directly on the barbecue. So if you put it directly on the barbecue, even if you say that you're not concerned about it being in the oven, whether it's sealed or not sealed, whether it's dim meat or whether it's barcha meat, but that's because the heat spreads around. Where I put it directly on the coals, think of this as like a hibachi where it's directly on the coals, right? Or what you have today, your own barbecue. So in such a case, I'm directly concerned about the coals because it's spread around. So that would be, even Rav Ashi would say it's prohibited. And Ravina, Hi kara chaya shaper dummy. A kara chaya. The last piece is a kara is like it's like a minyan diyoma. Kara is a type of gourd. Might be like a pumpkin. We gotta get that in for the holiday. Hi kara chaya shaper dummy. That's okay to put it onto the oven. Kavan the kashule zika kibis with the gadya dummy. Seeing that the smoke would be difficult, it's like the basar v'gedi that you wouldn't want to monkey with it. Apparently, this was a very hard kind of gourd that required a lot of cooking, so you weren't concerned about the actual coals itself. Pretty much that's the end of this sugya. Bottom line, quick recap, is all these are the exceptions to the rule of the last 12, 15 lines. The key to it, according to Beis Hillel, is there is no shvitat kelim. There is other problems. You may come to stir it, megisba, you may come yichate begecholim. That has a lot of implications. But the bottom line is, if you get everything to run on its own, and you can solve the secondary problems, then everything can work as it is. And that becomes a primary value in terms of the way we keep Shabbos now, right? All our houses have things that are moving all the time and working all the time. Your ovens, your stoves, your fridges, your heating, your lights, and so forth and so on. That's based upon this concept that there is no shvitat kelim. Your animal has to rest. Yes, if you have an animal, you have to have a rest, but your kelim do not have to rest. Okay?
They were clearly anticipating modern time when you had timers and this and that. It was
so what I didn't have time, maybe I'll spend time next time, when timers first came out, so Rabbi Moshe finds that at Tshuva, and even later when we said it's okay, he still was concerned about having timers on ovens. So I'll try to do that next time. I want to do it at the end today, but that's a standalone, okay?
Yeah.
Have a great week, guys. We're back on schedule, and thank you again for allowing me to miss all these weeks.
Here you go. Thank you.
Okay.